Did you know we have a thriving global community of like-minded ancestral home cooks and homesteaders? Every day on our Discord forum, we are discussing what we're cooking, what we're growing, what we're thinking about, what our latest struggles are, and supporting each other to fully embrace this beautiful lifestyle. As a patron member, you can also choose to access an extra private podcast feed, which includes monthly intimate chats where Andrea and I talk in depth about what's happening in our lives and kitchens. There are over 90 recordings waiting for you there right now. In addition, we've got a massive collection of inspiring and helpful downloads for you, including many recipes and videos. And once a month, you'll get to visit with myself, Andrea, and the community as we come together live and in person. Visit ancestralkitchenpodcast.com for all the details on how to join us. Come, be part of our world and change yours. Sausages, bacon, crackling. Good pork can be heavenly food. But Andrea and I know that sometimes in the ancestral food world, pork is viewed as the poorer cousin to grass-fed beef or pastured chicken. That needn't be the case, and this episode will put real pork where it deserves to be, at the centre of our plates. We'll give you some fascinating history bites. We'll talk about how the Industrial Revolution changed mainstream pigs, and we will lay out how buying real pastured pork is a positive, health-giving and delicious choice for you and those you love. Expect to be inspired by hearing us talk about the many ways we cook the products of the pig, from the nose to the tail. This episode is accompanied by a fabulous pork cookbook which we've gifted as a thank you to all our current supporters. So if you are a supporter, do go check your email. The book, with over 25 pork recipes, is also available to buy from the Pod's shop. You purchasing a copy will be directly supporting Andrea and I to continue this work. You can get it by typing ancestralkitchenpodcast.com/pork in your browser. So let's get to it. Pork as nutrient-dense, well cared for, delicious food.
Welcome to the Ancestral Kitchen Podcast.
I'm Alison, a European town dweller living in England.
And I'm Andrea, living on a family farm in Northwest Washington State, USA.
Pull up a chair at the table and join us as we talk about eating, cooking, and living with ancestral food wisdom in a modern world kitchen.
Hello, Alison. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, good morning to you. Is it light where you are yet or not? Is it still
even
dark?
A little bit. Yeah, we probably won't see the light for a while, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. So this episode is a little bit different. In fact, it's quite different from all the other ones we've never, ever done before. This has something new and fun, and that is a song from Rob, which you have actually put throughout this entire episode. We'll be hearing bits and pieces of it as we go. Mm-hmm. And Alison, I am pretty sure this is the first song of Rob's I ever heard, because way back when we were setting up the podcast, you sent me this song so that I could kind of get a feel for Rob's style.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I guess you were kind of auditioning him at me because then you said, what if Rob wrote and played the music for the podcast? And of course he did. So our theme is from and by Rob. And now this episode has a hilarious but bittersweet and very poignant song as well. He says he presents it in a funny way, but it's
serious,
a strong message. So it's going to be a good one for this episode. And before we get going with the rest of it, I also wanted to say we are recording this for the second time. There was a major technical glitch, which Rob found, much to his chagrin and your dismay and my consternation, when he played the audio from my end. So we are re-recording, but when we recorded last time, the foods that we ate beforehand, I felt like were so good. I actually want us to bring them back and reprise them for this episode. Okay. So don't tell me what you last ate. Tell me what you ate the last time we recorded this episode.
Okay. And I remember because it was so perfectly lined up with this episode that we're going to record, the topic. And I was just like, I did not plan that, but yet it fits in perfectly. So Gabriel was at home that day. And we were recording on a Friday, which is like the end of the week for us because we go to the market Saturday morning. So it kind of just use up what's in the fridge. And so I left him with, this is what's in the fridge. I'm going to come and make some pancakes just before dinner. Do what you want to with the rest of it. So he had onion and mushrooms and some kale. And I thought he was going to put them all in the one cast iron pan, but when I went down there, he had 2 cast iron pans on the go. I'm not quite sure why.
Why use one dish when you could use two?
Exactly.
So cute.
So we had the onions and the mushrooms and the bacon in one of them. Sorry, I didn't say bacon, did I? I had bacon from our farmer, Albert, at market. And then he had the kale in another saucepan, in another cast iron pan, and tomato on the kale. And then we combined it all together. So basically it was a big hash of onions, mushrooms, bacon, kale, and tomato sauce. So kind of a chunky tomato sauce that still had bits of tomato in it.
It smelled amazing.
And it did smell absolutely wonderful. And he put some spices in it. I think maybe he put my Nigella, because he's a chip off the old block in the terms of Nigella fanatic. And then I went downstairs and at breakfast I had put some emmer flour. I ground some emmer flour in the mock mill and mixed it with water and some sourdough starter, and I just left that on the side, and that had been fermenting. And then I oystered his bacon from one of the cast iron pans into the kale pan and put some more lard in that pan, and then fried us up some emmer pancakes. And so we had the pancakes, which were warm, with the bacon, tomato, kale, mushroom inside, and folded it over. It was absolutely delicious. And used up everything in the fridge, which is exactly what I needed.
Basically what we did yesterday. Not the meal, but using up things in the fridge. And when you say bacon, do you mean what I call ham?
No, well, I don't know. It was English back bacon, which, as we established a few weeks ago, is your Canadian bacon, isn't it? Yeah. So it's got quite a lot of meat on it, as well as a long strip of fat. But it's not like your streaky bacon. Yeah. It's more meat on it than streaky, and slightly thicker cut than your streaky, I think, from looking and remembering your streaky.
All right. Well, let me tell you what we ate as well.
Yeah, please do.
And I actually, after we recorded last time, I thought, I should just type this up and put it in the pork book. So that's what I did. And brilliant. This is just an old family recipe. My mom, when I was growing up, made this with this boxed thing called rice-a-roni. And it's just like rice and spices or something, but we don't use that anymore, obviously. So this is kind of inspired by the dish that she made, which was one of our household favorites. And now my kids absolutely go bonkers when I make it. So you take in, if you have cased sausage, I just squeeze it out of the case, or you put some bulk sausage in a pan and fry it up and then scoop out the sausage, but leave the grease. And then I like to throw in lots of garlic. You could do onions. I mean, whatever kind of floats your boat, but I'll tell you the simple message. Oh my gosh, why can't I talk today? I'll tell you the simple method that we used. Words are hard for me, Allison. So I toast the garlic in the pork fat, and then I also throw in the rice I'm going to use, and I toast that as well. And I get it really toasty all over, and then I throw back in the sausage. I throw in before the sausage, I guess, I throw in any other spices I want, although our sausage is usually spiced pretty well, so I don't always have to add more. And then I pour in a combination of water and tomato sauce, or crushed or diced tomatoes, and put the lid on it, and I just let it cook at real low until the rice has simmered and absorbed all of the liquid. And
do you need to stir it during that time? Do you have to go back, or is it okay just to leave it?
I might stir it 1 or 2 times in the beginning, but I really want it to kind of sit and become like a cake, basically.
I see. Okay.
And then once that is done, I take the lid off and I pile on shredded or sliced cheese, and I put the lid back on. It can be off at this point, and then just let the cheese all melt, and then we have at it. It's quite good.
Wow.
I don't know what I'm getting. I don't really know what like the official name of it is, but there we go.
I'm sure we could come up with some kind of weird name. You have to put that in the pork book. You have to call it something really kind of fancy.
The weirdly named sausage dish.
It's always really nice to put rice. I forget about rice sometimes because I'm so into kind of the bread and the spelt and ancient grains, and I forget how versatile and delicious and easy rice is in a dish like that. You throw it in, it soaks up all the lovely flavours of the stock or the tomatoes, whatever you're using, and it gives you textural interest when you're eating as well, and that carb, so you don't need to worry about it. And when you're making for a lot of people like you are, you're cooking for more people than I am here. It's just so useful to have it all in one pot and enough of it,
my mom actually does it in the oven. She does all the things I described on the stovetop, and then she takes and shoves her whole pan into the oven. I just don't want to run the oven because of the power. So I do it on the stovetop, but it could go either way. But it is nice having the rice in there. And as you know, I'm eating gluten-free right now. So I'll also mention, as you kind of hinted at a book. Do we want to say what the book is right now?
Yeah, go on then. Yeah, go on.
Okay. So, Allison, you put out the call for any of our supporters who wanted to contribute pork recipes or ideas to this episode. And when I say they delivered, they turned up. And so I was putting them into a little document, and the little document got bigger and bigger until it turned into a book. So there is a full-size book now. And what I was going to say is that it is actually pretty much a gluten-free book. It is largely gluten-free. Yeah, a lot of the recipes don't take a lot of grain, and like the one I just described has rice in it, but that would still be gluten-free, which for me right now is actually really convenient.
Yeah, I think only one of my recipes possibly that I sent across for you to put in there is spelt. But that, it's like a pastry, so that could be made with a gluten-free pastry instead. And the rest of them, I don't think have any gluten-containing grains in them. So, that's an added bonus.
How can you, I know I'm jumping out of order here, but since we're talking about the book, can we talk about how people can get the book?
Yeah, okay. So for the supporters of the podcast who are at the companionship level or above, they already have that book in their inbox. So if you're listening and you're a supporter, go check your inbox. You will find the book there. You can either have it on your device or you can download it and print it out. It's fine to just print it out at home, or you can, like you do, Andrea, with your copies of our books, you take them to the local printer and you have them put some kind of spring binding on it, so it's easy to turn the pages, and a lovely cover on the front that protects it. So you can do that with it as well. That's available for everyone. If you are not currently a supporter, but you would love to have a copy of all those delicious pork recipes, some of them from us, lots of them from the supporters, and other information in there, then the book is in our shop on our site, which is ancestralkitchenpodcast.com/shop. And there's also a menu option there. If you don't remember that URL, you can just choose shop. You will find the book in there along with the other two books we have, Meals at the Ancestral Hearth and The Spelt Sourdough Every Day.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you, Allison. Okay. So I also have a review to read. It's a short and sweet one, and it's from Kay Begale. And it says, loved this podcast for a while and find it continually inspiring and relevant.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you, Kay. And also, I was going to tell you that Ellen had made a mention the other day in a shared group that she and I are both in, where she said Allison's tips on spelt transformed my ancient grain baking, which is such a high compliment coming from someone who has been baking with ancient grains for a long time.
Oh, has she? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a comment on the Spelt Sourdough Everyday book that I just mentioned, which is in our shop. And what I like about that is that, Ellen's not the first person to mention that the recipes in there and the tips in there are applicable to grains other than spelt. So if you're using emmer, or if you're using einkorn, other grains that are like spelt, or heritage wheat, perhaps, you can take the information that's in that spelt book and use it on those grains as well. It will help guide you through those grains and through spelt.
Mm-hmm.
That's really nice. I just want, before we get onto the pork stuff, which I can't wait for, I just want to mention one other thing that's come out of me the last few months, which is on my own website, which is ancestralkitchen.com. I now have the Heritage Oat Collection available to download for free. It's a PDF which you can download again and either just have on your computer or print out. And in it are 3 traditional British oat recipes, which are ones that I've investigated and researched as part of the work that I'm doing on my forthcoming book. And the ones that I just absolutely love. And people have given me feedback and said, you know, I'm now cooking them every week, or I love to make these for my family. One of them's sweet and 2 of them are savoury. And each of the recipes has a little kind of history bite at the beginning, telling you kind of why this was originally made, how it was made, how it fits into which part of the UK. So it's an interesting read, and it also gives you something practical to go and do in your kitchen if you love oats. You can get that from my website, ancestralkitchen.com/heritage oats, all one word.
You know how to get me, Alison. Just set the trap with historical tidbits and good recipes.
Exactly. Oh, why not? Okay, so let's dive into the content for this particular episode. We are talking, as we've said, about pork. Both of us absolutely love pork, and we thought it was about time that we did an episode dedicated to it. And as you said earlier, I sort of put this out to our supporters on our Discord forum and in our email communications, and mentioned that we're going to be doing it, and they were very happy and very encouraging that they would like to hear an episode about pork. I had one comment in particular that I wanted to share before we start, from Laura, who is a supporter, who said, "I'm looking forward to this episode because we love pork, but it seems to not be as well accepted in the healthy eating world, probably because of CAFOs, or maybe because the focus is on grass-fed beef right now. We are lucky to have a pork source from a local regenerative farm." So that kind of speaks to something that I've heard from a lot of people who listen, that pork is kind of, they're not really sure about it, you know, compared to beef. And so I wanted to, as well as talking about lots of other things, the products of the pork and the history of pork and that, in this episode, we will be directly kind of addressing all the way through that kind of feeling of, why are we not celebrating pork as much as we're celebrating beef? As Andrea said, in the background you'll hear our special accompaniment, which is a song called Who You Calling Pigs, that's from my husband. And his music can be found at robertmichaelk.com. The link's in the show notes for that. And I'm hoping that it will just kind of come in and out in between what we're talking about. We've never done this sort of thing before, so it's a new step forward for us, and hopefully it will be really entertaining and smooth on your ears. We've got that, and we've got the book that Andrew just talked about. So it feels like a bumper episode to start 2026 with, which I'm really excited to dive into, Andrea. Before we start, let's quickly go to an ad break. If you're into ancestral eating, you'll know that liver is a superfood. Full of vitamin A, K and a whole host of B vitamins, plus many essential minerals, it has an exceptional nutrient profile and is a staple of traditional healthy diets. But it's not always easy to consistently get liver into our lives. Finding a good supply, cooking it so it actually tastes good, and getting all of our family to eat it. These things can be hard, especially when we're busy or travelling. That's where Andrew and I turn to liver capsules. They give us all the benefits of liver without having to worry about the sourcing, the preparation, or the eating. One Earth Health produces organ capsules from 100% grass-fed New Zealand-raised cattle. As a podcast listener, you can get 15% off your first order and 5% off subsequent orders by using the link in our show notes. And each time you order, you'll also be supporting us to continue making this podcast. Okay, let's start with some history. The pig and its domestication. And I just really wanted to start by saying pigs have been around for such a long time. Not necessarily in the form that we know them now, but if you think, for instance, of wild boar, they've been around for tens of centuries, and we've been hunting and killing and eating them for tens of centuries. And in a lot of places now, that still happens. You know, I came back from living in Italy last year, and regularly, as soon as the wild boar season started, wherever we were living, we would hear the hunting happening, and we would eat the wild boar as well. It was really, really wonderful. So it still happens regularly in Italy. Pigs themselves were domesticated about 8,000 years ago. And when you think about how a pig works, you can understand why, because they eat waste and they make food from it, and they produce manure. And so for a farmer, each of those three things in that chain of pigs is really indispensable. There have been so many different breeds of pigs, and each area had their own pigs. China is a particularly large area that's got a strong history with pigs. And when I read the book by Dan Saladino, Eating to Extinction, which is in our, I think I linked it in our non-Amazon online bookstore. Links in the show notes for that. He explained how deep the pig goes in Chinese culture through their language, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. And I wanted to share it with you, Andrea, and everyone listening, that the Chinese language symbol for home or house or family was made thousands of years ago by literally adding the symbol for the word roof on top of the symbol for the word pig. So
that is
home,
incredible.
what symbolises home is a pig with a roof on top of it.
I love it.
And in addition, in Chinese, the word for meat refers solely to pork. All other animal flesh needs to be identified by its species. So, for example, cow meat or sheep's meat.
Oh,
and
see,
I think
this is so fascinating,
amazing.
Alison. When you just think about the kind of the history and the DNA of a word, what's crammed into a word is so fascinating to me, and it's a good reminder why the words we use are so important. And the symbol, the fact that they wrote with symbols and encased their history in those symbols is just completely incredible.
Yeah. And I feel like there's so much that we can learn from so many aspects of culture. And if you just look at language, you wouldn't think that there was a whole story of culture and food embedded in the word for Chinese home. And yet it doesn't take much digging to find that out. And it's part of the embeddedness of everything within our culture and our history. If you go back and pull threads, you end up finding out all these other things that are absolutely fascinating.
I found this so completely incredible the first time you told me this, Alison, because I did not know this at all. And I ended up going online and looking up pictures to find that symbol. And I found a number of examples of it. I actually put one in the pork book. So if people want to see what it looks like, they could kind of scroll down to that section. And I was looking for interesting pieces of art from history that incorporated the pig, and I wanted to put them all in. There was so many statues and paintings and things like that, but I just put in a sampling. But my goodness, the pig is throughout a lot of history, it turns up. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I feel like, both wild and domesticated pigs are woven through our culture. And even now, as I said, in Italy, some of them are wild. Pigs have been wild or semi-wild for many centuries, just left in forests to forage. In the UK, there were rights of what was called pannage, which means you could take, for example, your pig into the local forest and just let it, snuffle around and pick up the nuts off the floor. I think the most famous examples that we think of ham, that are the most gourmet types of ham, are examples of pigs like this. There's the Cinta Senese in Italy, or Iberico, the famous ham in Spain.
Who you calling pigs? You're gonna spoil a good name. You got to be kidding me. Oh, when you say humane. Yeah. You like us and crazy.
So if we had all these different types of pigs and then all the wild types of pig, how have we gone from that to, where this is going? Now we live in a world where there's one dominant breed that is kind of taking over. What drove that?
Yeah, it's a long story, and it kind of fits with so many of the other stories of changes that we've seen in food and we've talked about on this podcast. The changes in wheat and the changes in fats. It's amazing. So if I give you the example of Britain has traditionally many, many pig breeds. Mm-hmm. When the Industrial Revolution happened, this changed because at that point British pigs needed to be large scale. They needed to be suitable for large scale, and they just weren't. So in Britain, we imported the Chinese pig and we bred from that Chinese pig. By the 1800s, we had a pig which was called the large white, or it also was called the Yorkshire in some places, that had been developed. And then we took that pig, which we developed to be, available for large scale and capable of that. We then exported that around the world. Interestingly, Denmark, a country which in Europe at least is well known for its bacon, they bought those large whites and they bred them. And they were very good at it. And British farmers couldn't keep up. And then imports were coming in of the bacon from Denmark. And so after the war, the British government got to addressing this, and they said, and this is a most frustrating quote, the industry was being held back by diversity.
Oh my God. Which
seems to be the thread of so much that happened after the Industrial Revolution. And now we're trying to unpick that, and we're trying to say, no, we need diversity. At that time,
so
they said,
you're telling me the diversity was still lingering at that point.
Yes, it was. Obviously, how dare
the government actively said, we need to work against this because somebody ran a bunch of numbers.
Yeah. And they thought, we can't compete in this fast-moving world unless we take these fewer amount of pigs that we have, compared to 200 years ago, but we need to focus on one pig type. They were like, we need one.
Alison,
so
that is very strongly reminding me of a quote from Joel Salatin. I'm not going to say it exactly, but he often refers to the fact that he says, when you are, we're not talking GMO at this point, but you're just using sexual selection basically to determine traits in a pig and then whittling down even the breed choice. And he says, when you exclusively breed for one thing like size, he goes, you're going to inevitably start losing the broader scope of the traits.
Absolutely.
So things like maybe being a good mother or having good teats or something like that, those will start to fall away as you just hyper-focus on this one thing. And then you do end up very much hamstringing yourself and you don't have, a very survivable animal. And I'm thinking of that here where the government was looking at a piece of paper and said, what we need is more volume. So at the exclusion of all other possible factors of value, we're going to just focus on volume. And without realizing what they were losing in the process. So
it feels
dangerous.
Like a kind of a mirror to the Green Revolution that happened in that, there was this pressure for more yield because of the problems the world seemed to be facing. And yes, it focused on yield, but then that brought with it a
yield
load
at what
of
cost?
Stuff that we are now struggling with. That's why I'm baking with ancient grains, and that's what I'm teaching with that we've lost this diversity. And the whole of Dan Saladino's book is about that, and all the many different types of foods that you just we've lost this diversity, and yet we need that to be resilient. And and how much of a apprehension these people were under, that they could not see beyond the thing that was in front of them at that time, It's interesting, because this pig came out and we focused on one pig type. We lost that diversity. And then really, since then, the breeding of that pig to provide us with pork has gone with the trends that have happened since then. So, for example, in the 1970s, saturated fat became the devil and people didn't want to eat it and we were told not to eat it. And so that pig that the British were working on became a leaner pig. It was made a leaner pig in order to not have so much saturated fat in. It feels like we're, like you said, tampering with what is natural and what nature would choose by itself and not understanding the consequences of it, which is really sad. Luckily, back when this was all happening, there was a group of very wise farmers in the UK, one particular man who started it, who created something called the Rare Breed Survival Trust, and he got support. And that organisation and those farmers tried to save those old breeds that were being lost.
You lock us in crates, tuned and birth to our young. We never even get to see the outside. 201st and 10 meters by 12. You wouldn't do this to the rest of your kind. Oh, we may have been bred to be saucy.
Okay, so let's, from the kind of history, let's focus on now and talk a little bit about the pig industry now. We've gone from those wild pigs, pigs in small farms, and in the UK, at least, many years where literally every household, even in towns, had a pig in their backyard. We've gone from that to the indescribable horrors of industrial pig units. And although it's painful and uncomfortable to talk about them, I do want to touch on that here because they really do highlight how inhumane and insane our food system has become. So I'm going to just talk through some kind of statistics and figures, and all of the references for these are in the show notes. So if you want to go and look at any of them in particular, go have a look at our show notes and you will find links there. So the scale of industrial pig farming now is inconceivable. We have things called mega farms, which in the UK at least are ones that house over 2,500 animals. And the number of those mega farms in the UK has increased 20% since 2016.
Wow.
If you search online, you'll find multiple example articles where the inhumane conditions of those mega farms are exposed. One example I found was a farm in Warwickshire in the UK, which has 8,000 pigs in 48 sheds. And this farm has what we use in the UK on supermarket labels, a red tractor sticker on it, which apparently, if you see that in a supermarket in the UK, it's supposed to indicate saner conditions for the animals, kind of healthy, looking after the animals. They're in healthier conditions and they're being treated better. But this particular farm that has red tractor status, and people are looking at the packets of pork in supermarkets thinking, oh, red tractor, that's got to have been a bit better pork. This farm was exposed as having cannibalism and animal abuse, which just feels absolutely insane.
You cannot put that many animals in a place.
No.
Absolutely. In an enclosed space. Like I know somewhere in the back of my mind for years I thought, oh, these people must have systems that they can manage this many animals on. You cannot. It does not work. And animals also have natural herd and flock sizes. And when you exceed those natural sizes, Joel Salatin, again, I will quote, he compares it to like when a chicken is in a flock size larger than what her species is made for. He says, compare it to living in a football stadium filled with people. Something would feel off to you constantly. In a household of 5 to 15 people, you can still feel pretty normal. So we understand that, but my goodness, there is no management system that can handle that. And when the conditions of these red tractor farms are so appalling that when I first read through these notes, not knowing what red tractor meant, I thought it was like I thought maybe some environmental group had this like flag of red tractor farms. These are bad. I didn't understand that it was supposed to be a sign of a like better farm.
Yeah, it just makes a mockery of the whole system, really. You cannot trust anything that's on a label, in my opinion, in any kind of supermarket or large-scale food distribution
I'll just tell you
network.
right now, they say what you want to hear.
Yeah, that make you buy it.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not.
Yeah. It's not just in the UK. I mean, both of those stats are from the UK. Some of the stats from the States, the death rate for female sows nearly doubled on US farms with more than 250 pigs in an article from 2018. And what's interesting is that this kind of mega farm development, the number of pig farms have decreased incredibly. So one quote I read said pig production has increased by more than 80% since the late 1980s, even as the number of farms has decreased by approximately 85%.
Whoa.
So pig production going up 80%.
That's almost the same number.
But the farms it's ridiculous, isn't it?
You know, our largest pork producer here in the U.S. is Smithfield. Okay. And I think that name is probably based on your market, right? And Smithfield isn't even owned by the U.S. It's owned by a Chinese company.
Oh, gosh, really?
So I guess they still love pigs. But it's huge. And Smithfield has tons of farms, obviously. And I don't think any of them are less than, when I was reading online about it after we started talking about this pork buck, I don't think any of them were smaller than 5,000, but some of them are, I mean, thousands beyond that. And like you said, when the death rate for female sows nearly doubled, when the size of the farm exceeded 250 pigs, that's a grim number. Yeah,
I dread to think what that is on those farms that have that many more pigs in it.
And
as you said, go on.
I was just going to say, like, another hidden cost that never turns up in any of these charts and articles that we read is the cost to the human workers who have to participate in this program, because they end up themselves having to dehumanize in order to cope with the work. And it does lead to unhappiness for them in their life, which is really just devastating to think about.
Yeah, that's a side of it that even if we do think about the horrors that happen in those farms, it's easy to forget that there are humans involved in each stage of that chain, and you can bet they aren't being treated any better than those pigs, because that's not what the dealer's making money, as you said a few minutes ago, there is no precedent for keeping that many animals in that confined space in the history of humans. We haven't done that. And when we do now put animals together like that, it doesn't work sanitarily for the animals, for the environment, the feed, the health issues that come up, the disease, the waste products. We've talked about that on our episode about chickens, just trying to deal with that amount of manure coming from that many pigs in such a small place. It's just an absolute, a time bomb waiting to explode.
Yeah.
I find it incredible that we would do that. I feel like for pigs particularly, because it was almost like you can, and we'll talk about this a bit later, you can treat a pig in a different way to how you can treat a cow. And for pigs, it feels to me like this CAFO system is one of the worst sides of our industrial agricultural system. Seeing the pictures you see come up on online news sites, I can really understand why anyone would turn vegan.
Yeah.
I cannot see how anyone could look at those pictures, read those articles, hear the stats that I've just said, and then consciously put pork from a supermarket into their shopping trolley. That just feels like it can't be done. But what we're trying to say in this episode is it's not the keeping and the eating of pigs that's the problem. We've been doing that for many, many centuries. It's how we farm them and how we eat them.
Hey, you washing the dishes. Been there. You've heard Allison and I talk over and over about her love of rye sourdough bread. Well, I might actually call it an obsession, but that's neither here nor there. Now you can make Allison's rye sourdough in your own kitchen with her as your teacher. And she's a really good teacher. Rye is economical, it's delicious, and full of nutrients and low in gluten. There's a reason why it has been a darling of bread bakers for centuries. Make it into sourdough, as Allison will show you in her course, Rye Sourdough Bread, Mastering the Basics. And you've got an amazing, tasty, and nutritious staple in your kitchen. It's traditional and it's nutritional. In this course, you'll learn everything there is to know about how she creates and maintains her rye sourdough starter, all about whole grain sourdough rye, including the key differences between baking with rye and wheat, how to make 2 loaves, an everyday rye sandwich bread, and a delicious Russian-style dark rye loaf, and what to do with your sourdough discard, including video walkthroughs for sourdough pancakes and a tasty, sweet, spiced cake. Head to www.ancestralkitchen.com/rye.
Okay, so let's talk about some surprising facts about pigs. Which
I'm here for this.
Which some of these, well, most of these, I would say, came to my attention when Rob wrote the lyrics for the song that you can hear in the background of this episode, because he went to a pig farm in Kent, which is where we were living at the time. It was when Gabriel was very young. And he talked to a farmer who was raising pastured pigs and learnt so much about pigs.
Rob is
such
very
an
thorough.
amazing diet.
His research is quite thorough.
You know, I think it was far away from a train station. I seem to remember he ran like 10 miles or something.
Of course he did.
To get there.
Of course he did.
So they're just wonderful. So I wanted to share some of them with you. So pigs are more intelligent than dogs. They can learn their names in 2 weeks, and they can complete puzzles that were made for primates, chimpanzees. They also have social intelligence. They build bonds and they play games in their communities. I think I just want to share an experience I had with pigs here, because I'm not a farmer like you are. I've not had pigs, but I do get to know my farmers wherever I'm living. And my farmer in Italy was called Flavio, as long-time listeners of the podcast will know. And very often we went to his farm, which was a few miles from where we were living. And he usually did a barbecue with loads of amazing food, and we took some bread. And I would go and visit with the animals and see what he had, and he would show me around. And on one occasion, we went to see the pigs, and there were piglets there that they weren't tiny, but they weren't really, really big pigs. And I went into the space that they were in, and I have never been so emotionally affected by being with a farm animal as I was at that moment. I think I probably was picking up on that social intelligence, the part of the pig that can communicate in ways that you just don't see when you look at them, without kind of being with them. And I remember kind of staying with them and walking around and stroking them and watching them and talking to them. And I was maybe in there, Rob was outside and Gabriel was off playing with some of the other kids. He was outside the sort of area. And I think I was in there more than half an hour. And I felt like I kind of didn't want to leave. My eyes were a little bit kind of teary, and I just wanted to stay there with the pigs. And I'm not, I'm not familiar with animals like that. I'm not someone who easily goes up to a cow, and strokes it. It's unfamiliar to me. And yet with those pigs together, I felt such a closeness and a bond with them. And I feel like that really tells something of the story of what these animals are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other things that Rob passed on to me is that pigs sing. They have vocalizations, and people who study them have said that they have 20 different vocalizations based on their emotional state. The mothers, like I said, sing to their babies. They can signal and they transfer emotional states, just like we do to our young, just like we do to our children. I just think it's amazing. Now, Andrew, you have had pigs. I don't know if you've got them now. Can you talk a little bit about how you experience the pigs that you've had at the farm?
Yeah, we've only had 2, and we absolutely loved them, and we've agreed that we definitely want more because the experience was very positive for us. And I for sure would agree with how intelligent and smart they are. These pigs were very quick to pick things up. You could walk them like you could walk a dog just by using a stick to kind of touch their side, and they kind of go away from the stick a little bit, so you can imagine you can guide them. And we've all seen drawings and paintings of swine herds and things with their sticks, you know?
Yeah.
So you can picture how it looks. And one of our pigs, when Gary was taking them we were going to take them to this one specific butcher, and he got one pig in the trailer, and then the other pig saw and said, yeah, I'm not doing that. And she just ran off into the woods. So Gary's like, I guess I'm just taking one. And he took the one. And then we figured we'd find some other solution for the other pig, but she ended up just living in our yard for a while. And I thought, oh no, she's going to leave manure everywhere. It's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
Not a bit of it. She trampled down a part of the fence to our little blueberry patch, and she made that her litter box. And she would go in there, do her business, and get right out. She does not spend any time. You know, it's like any human with a bathroom. It's not like you're hanging out in there.
Yeah,
she just goes in, comes out. Never left a pile anywhere. Cleaner than a dog, for sure. Cleaner than a cat. And our ground is extremely hard packed because the topsoil has been stripped off from logging over the last 100 years. So it's very hard packed, very gravelly, very rocky. And if you try to dig with it, even with a shovel, it's quite difficult. And you look at a pig's soft little snout. I don't know how she did it, but she'd put her nose down and she'd tunnel straight through and churn up the dirt. And Gary said, man, maybe we should have just put her in the yard, because he really wants to break it up and put seed down and stuff. And he's like, maybe we should have just put her out here and let her break it up for a while.
Do the work.
Because
and do it kind of naturally. Wow.
Yeah. And she's not really a digging breed, so she didn't do a lot of it, but she did some. But it was just amazing to me because I couldn't see how her soft little snout could do that. But she'd come up to the car when we come home, and she'd want to get scratched and pet. And of course, she's, 400 pounds of wanting to get scratched and pet. So the kids were kind of like, she's leaning on me. But she was very friendly, and she doesn't jump up on you like a dog might.
Yeah.
So she just wants to lean her 400 pounds on you. It was really fun and sweet. And I thought, man, I could have a pig for a pet. Like, this is pretty amazing. And I know people do. So I do take umbrage when people say pigs are smelly, because I think that they just mean the management of pigs that they have seen up to this point has been poor management and smelly management. Because if you give a pig a space, she will only do her business in that one little space, and she'll keep the rest of her spot clean. Of course, if you had 5,000 of them, now you're going to run into big problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like if you imagine you had 5,000 people, cholera and dysentery breaks out. It's not a good thing. So anyways, it was just really fascinating and fun having them. And I think I told you that I learned that pigs can apparate, because they can, I'm serious, they can get out of any pen, as we learned. And one time I walked up and put her back into the pen, and I latched the pen, and then I turned around and she was standing behind me.
Huh? How'd that happen?
To this day, I do not know how she did it. I walked around the whole thing. I couldn't find any spot where she could have got out. I still don't know how she did it. So I think they can apparate.
So obviously, people who have been observing pigs have got yet more work to do to find out how that happens.
You need to learn.
There's one more thing about pigs which I wanted to share before we finish this fun little section, which is that they dream. So they, like humans, they have REM sleep, which scientists have said suggests that they dream.
Wow.
Just because we're so smart, we don't have to be dull. See, it's cool, we're in the mud, so we play. We may have trotters for feet, but we dream just like you. You know, at night we even sing to our babes. Oh, we may have been bred to be big.
So, Allison, what is the pig? The pigs be dreaming. The CAFOs aren't good.
Yeah.
They've been around for a long time. We get all that. What is important to look at when you buy pork?
Yeah, this is a very important question.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the supermarket is just out of the equation.
Okay.
If if I was going into a supermarket and I knew I had to buy some meat and I had no other choice, I would not buy pork there. I would buy a different type of meat. So find a farmer that raises pork, and go to a farmer's market, talk to people you know, search online, and then talk to that farmer, find out from them what animals they have, perhaps what breed they are, what they're feeding their pigs. Is it a small farm? How many animals have they got? How are the animals kept? And I know we've talked about this kind of questioning before, Andrea, and that some people feel really self-conscious and awkward talking to a potential farmer about this kind of thing. And I always think you have good advice around here. So what's your kind of take? I know that you've had your own pigs and so you've had your own pork, but what would be your take on how to source pork and in particular how to speak to a potential farmer about it?
Well, we were buying pork from other friends and for years before we raised our own, and we still have some of our own pork that we're going through today. And I've also bought a little bit more again from my friend who I was buying pigs from before. And if you are looking for someone to buy pigs or pork from, I should say, you can always check eatwild.com and see if there's a farm around you that's raising them in a method that kind of jives with you. I mean, odds are if you get to a small farm, it's going to be 1,000 times better than one of these CAFOs. Maybe over time you can sort of find pastured, but even if you just immediately want to make a switch and you can't find fully pastured, but you've got pigs that are maybe getting some of the feed that's not your favorite, it's still a start. It's still a step in the right direction. And you can talk to that farmer and start building, farmers are selling what people are buying. And a lot of people don't care. So if a farmer knows what's important to you, that does factor into decisions that are made year over year. And I would also say if every farmer you talk to is sold out, don't be discouraged. Pigs are quite easy to throw another one in the herd and raise for the next year, as opposed to like a cow or something larger. So if a farmer says, we're fully sold out for this year, you could say, can I reserve a pig for next year? You're going to put a non-refundable deposit on it, I'm sure. But then he knows what to plan for.
I wanted to add something just to that, which is really interesting. Amelia, who's a supporter here in the UK, actually kind of adopted a pig, which is kind of what you're talking about. That, you know, she said, okay, I'm going to pay for this pig. And she knew which pig it was. And then as the pig was brought up by the farmer, when the pig was ready, she had all of that pig. And so she was using all of the bits that we'll talk about in a minute.
That's
exactly
exactly
it's a kind of a similar thing to what you've just said, adopt a pig.
What the farmer needs to know is that you're an invested buyer. And, there are people who will say, oh, I'm interested, and then never turn up again. So they really need to know that you're serious about this. And Amelia obviously exhibited that to her farmer, which is just amazing. And I love, maybe she could talk to us about that experience on one of our next live calls, because that would be really fun to hear about.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah.
So you can also, asking farmers, like we've said, sometimes you want to be careful that you don't come in sounding like the city slicker who's like, excuse me, but do you sing to these things at night, or like what? So you need to, have some respect for the farmer and what he's doing when you ask him. Even if he's using methods you disagree with, just have some respect, because they're doing hard work, and they are also learning, and they have also been taught, things that we were all taught that maybe we now are finding is not so ideal. So even if a farmer isn't doing your exact thing. Just show some respect. And there's a book by Joel Salatin called Holy Cows and Hog Heaven, The Food Buyer's Guide to Farm-Friendly Food. And it isn't pig specific, but it is talking to your farmer about their food specific. And it has great ideas. And at the end of every chapter, he has little things you could do, things you could ask, things you could read. And it is such a wonderful book. And it's a little bit salty, and it has some funny little quips in it, as Joel's books tend to do. So I highly recommend that book, and it will give you some specific ideas for questions for farmers.
Okay, so let's move on to the topic of health and, harken back to what Laura said at the beginning, the quote that I read, that pork always seems to be kind of, we're not sure about it. It's playing second fiddle to beef. And I think that's quite an important point, that grass-fed beef and grass-fed red meat has been kind of the darling of the nutrient-dense community, and a lot of the energy and a lot of the focus goes on that, which leaves pork somewhat in the shadows. And because pigs will eat anything, it's easier to end up with a pig that has eaten something that you're not sure about. Whereas, the beef that we buy, we have that grass-fed label and it's kind of clearer. But both of us feel like pork bought from a reputable farmer, fed well, is a wonderful, wonderful meat. It's a complete protein, it's high in vitamin B, and it's got many minerals in it: zinc, phosphorus, selenium, iron. Really, it is a health food, and it's something that we can bring to our plates alongside, the other types of food that we're looking for that have been farmed well. But just again, back to that, keep looking for a good source. Like Laura had found a good regenerative farm for her pork, and that's the important thing to think about when you're concerned about, is pork good for my health? Do you want to add anything there before I move on to a bit more about health, Andrea?
I'll add in that pork is a red meat, and it looks very red when you get these pastured pigs. And I've had people even call me and say, look at this picture of the pork I bought. I think something's wrong with it. And I'll tell them, no, that's what it's supposed to look like. We're just so accustomed to this super, super pale color of...
kind of a grey colour.
Yeah. Why'd you have to say that? The grey color of the meat that comes from the store oftentimes. So when you get your fresh pastured pork, it will look closer to beef than to chicken.
Yeah. Interestingly, my upbringing, we had a roast every Sunday, and, we were kind of tagged between tradition. Chicken and beef and pork. And I thought I didn't like pork. Literally, I would always avoid the pork because it was just this grey thing with a layer of just funny fat around the outside, and because I was fat phobic back then, and it just tasted of nothing. It just tasted of nothing at all.
Yeah.
And yet, last Christmas, I was just, let's get some belly pork and let's make this beautiful crackling. And it was some of the nicest pork, some of the nicest food I could ever imagine. And to think that those two foods are apparently the same thing, One was grey.
Not even a little bit. They go by the same name, but they are not the same thing.
They're not.
No.
Okay. There
Good pork
two...
is transcendent.
Yes, transcendent is the word I would use. It was just, I went back to Albert at the market and I said, the pork that we bought for Christmas from you was just amazing. Because it was.
How rewarding for a farmer to hear that. He was out in the mud every morning, every night, and for a year, and then you enjoyed the piece of pork on Christmas, and then you came and told him what the experience meant to you. And that is really, really positive for a farmer to hear.
I feel it's very important to share that back. I love it
when
when we hear stuff from podcast listeners saying how much the podcast has brought to them. How that makes us feel. It feels like I'm doing good. This is actually changing things, and that is very, very important, really. Okay, there are two health concerns I think that people have about pork. The first one is parasites, because there are 2 different parasites that can inhabit pork. The thing that you need to know here is you must cook the meat.
I didn't see that coming.
If you well cook that pork, those parasites are destroyed. So if you have a whole cut of pork, make sure with an internal thermometer, either a laser thing that puts a funny beam through it, or a probe thermometer, make sure that the inside of that pork is 145F or 63C for a whole cut. If you're using mince, which is ground pork, or offal, it should be 160F, 71C. And once that's reached that temperature, whatever type of pork it is, you should rest it for 3 minutes before you serve it. Then you just don't need to worry about parasites, because
what's the resting
killed.
For?
I don't know. It's a very good question. Okay. Usually it's for flavour, isn't it? You rest your beef.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Maybe it's to stabilise the temperature throughout the tissues, I would have thought, maybe.
Yeah, I kind of, this would be a question for Abby Allen. She's the one who would know. Why do you rest it? It's probably got something to do with cutting Gary was even telling me when he was carving up the pig and then the beef, when we were packaging it to freeze, he said the direction you cut them is going to affect the flavor. I was like, what?
Yeah, I think he's probably right. Although I've never seen that, but I can imagine that it makes a difference because, the muscle fibers and how they react, how the proteins change under the heat source, it must make a difference.
And he's spent a lot of time with woodworking, and he's always told me, oh, you do this with the grains, or you use this type of grain for that. And so he's familiar with, following the channels and whatnot.
Yeah. He should come here and sort out our meat. So, parasites, you don't need to worry about them. The other health concern people have with pork is the fat, because, whatever you feed that pig is going to go into its fat. And so if you're eating a part of the pig that is particularly fatty, or if you're using the fat from the pork, you're going to be getting the consequence of whatever that pig has eaten. So again, here we go back to buy pastured pork. Try and find out what that pig has eaten, because whatever it's eaten is going to be reflected completely in its fats. So cook your pork and sauce it really well. Then both of those health concerns, really, you don't need to be worried about. Do have a listen to our private podcast that will come out later this month. If you'd like to hear us go further into health concerns that have come up, Laura sent in another question, and we've got a couple of other questions. And I didn't want to hijack this episode with those, but we will go into those health questions at a deeper level in the private podcast. So go and check that out when we release it later this month. Okay, on that, I wanted to also say that private podcast feed that will have the extra pork information in, there are now over 100 episodes there in that feed. And every time I kind of go back to it to post another one, I look at it and I think, my gosh. And I scroll back and I look at some and I think,
episode
that looks interesting. I think I might listen to that one. I don't remember what we said.
Yeah, I think that podcast has outstripped the main feed in numbers of episodes at this point.
Or how long we've talked for, because we're unstoppable.
Well.
So those are all available to supporters who are companionship or above. Okay, we're going to move on to talk about products of the pig and how we cook them, the really tasty part. But let's go to an ad break first. Do you love oats? Want to try your hand at a traditional Scottish oat fermentation? Suhan's is just that. It was made in Scotland for centuries and will give you both a creamy, easy-to-digest porridge and a tangy probiotic drink. My video course, Suhan's the Scottish Oat Ferment, over at the Fermentation School, will guide you through everything you need to know to create these 2 ancestral foods in your own kitchen, no matter what equipment you have. Head to ancestralkitchen.com/Suhan's, ancestralkitchen.com/Suhan's, SOWANS, or click the link in the show notes to get a 10% discount automatically applied. Okay, so we were just talking about fat, and I want to start by talking about the fat of the pig. And the first thing I want to say is don't buy lard, which is the fat of the pig, from a supermarket or a shop, because it is horrible. It's probably been hydrogenated, which is a word that most of us now think that's not a good thing to do to fats. We've learnt that, and most of the world has learnt that now. I wanted to give you a really visceral example of this, that Gable's been eating rendered pig fat in the form of lard since he was very, very young, because we've been rendering it since the beginning of our kind of ancestral food journey. And he's got very used to it. He has it cooked, vegetables and meat cooked in it. He has pancakes fried in it. He spreads it on his bread, puts a bit of salt on the top. And he loves it. And when we came back to England, and we were all kind of disorganised with no farmer and kind of, suitcases everywhere, I wanted to make something with lard in. And so I thought, I'm just going to buy some packet of this kind of old-fashioned, in quotes, lard, it says on the label.
Is that what it said?
Just a load of rubbish. And so I bought it to use in, I think it was pastry I was making, because I do like lard in my pastry. And Gable saw this lard in the fridge and thought, it's lard, I'll have some of that. And he tried some and he was like, what on earth is this? It's horrible.
Oh my God.
I was like, it's shop lard. I hadn't tried it at that point. It's like, it doesn't taste anything like lard. It just tastes horrible.
Whoa.
And I mean, Gable's not, he'll eat anything, he'll try anything. And his reaction to that just tells the story of the difference between decent pig fat rendered at home and the pig fat that's sold in blocks in a supermarket as lard.
What did you do with it?
Oh, we threw it away. And it wasn't very expensive, because guess what? It doesn't, it's made in some horrible factory and it doesn't cost much to make.
No.
But just if you ever think about doing it, don't do it. Go without it. Find something else to use instead.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that kind of tangent a little bit, let's go back to the bullet points that I have in front of me.
Sending him into the mine to see if the air is good.
Exactly. Yeah, he did it without me even looking. So I just turned around and he was like,
gosh. I can hear him saying it now.
So we have an episode way back in the annals, number 33, which you can scroll down and find, called The Fats We Love, The Fats We Leave. And in that
has the horror story of lard in it.
Yeah.
And
in
Crisco, right?
We talk about lard quite a lot. There are two types of fat that you will often see offered to you from your butchers for making lard. You can get back fat, which is on the back of a pig, or you can get leaf fat, which is the fat that it surrounds the organs of the animal. You can make lard from both of them. Leaf fat is supposed to have a more delicate flavour. Lard
Alison,
is...
I haven't bought leaf fat. So I'm wondering, because we just have it from our own pigs.
Yes.
Or like when we get a pig, we get the whole thing. So we take it out of there. So I'm wondering, does it cost more than the back fat? Because there's so much less leaf lard.
In my experience, it doesn't. Because I don't think really, for the farmers that I've been to, there hasn't been a public understanding of the difference between back and leaf. And so they sell both of them at the same price.
I basically put it in my freezer with like a gold label on it. Do not use this for anything else, because it is going in a pie. It's going to be a crust.
Hands up.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very, very nice if you can get it. Lard is a wonderful source of vitamin D, which if you live in England is quite hard to get. If you live in Washington State, kind of hard to get too often. It has a great omega-3/6 balance. It's 50% monounsaturated fat. People think lard is just this, terrible saturated fat, but it's 50% monounsaturated as well as saturated fat. And it has the wonderful brain food, which is cholesterol in it too. So
can't have a brain without that.
Oh, exactly. Rendering, I was going to make some comment about society in general at that point, but I don't think I will.
Put it in the after show.
Yeah. So rendering lard is not difficult. People feel daunted by it. And it was interesting when we interviewed Holistic Healed, or maybe it was when she interviewed me for the Wise Traditions podcast. We talked about lard briefly, and she said, this rendering thing is just such a daunting word. It's just melting. Let's just call it melting lard. And then it doesn't seem so scary, does it?
Exactly.
I have an article on how to render or melt lard in the slow cooker, which I will link in the show notes. You can do it in the slow cooker. You can do it in your oven. You can also do it in the instant pot on the slow cooker setting or on the pressure cooker setting. I've done that a few times, not as easy as the slow cooker setting. So if you have the time, do it in the slow cooker setting. We render lard probably, I would say, once every 2 months. We do a big lot, and then, we're decanting it into separate containers, and some of them go in the fridge and some of them go in the freezer. If you can get your farmer to mince that fat that they give you, it will save you a lot of time, because really the most time-consuming part of making lard for us is chopping that fat into small pieces to get the
100%.
Optimum kind of, juiciness out of it.
And it's not that easy to chop fat, I'll just say.
Rob does that job, and he struggles with it sometimes, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, your hand does pay a price. It is worth it. It is definitely worth it. Yeah. And if I didn't have the option to grind it, for sure, I'd still be doing it. But I do find it easier to grind it.
Yeah. Some people say, there's this wet rendering and there's this dry rendering. What's the difference? Very simply put, wet rendering is using water to facilitate the process, and involves an extra step in that you then need to leave the rendered fat and the water, which is the product, to set, and then obviously they separate, and you can then get rid of that water and keep your fat. The water tends to keep the resulting lard pure. It gets rid of slightly more impurities. So if you're looking for a lard that you might use in a soap or in some cosmetic process, it's probably optimal to wet render it. Dry rendering means you're not using any water at all. And if you do it carefully and you don't take the temperature up too high, then the lard's wonderful. It doesn't, taste particularly piggy if you've got good fat. No. So I think I've wet rendered lard once. And I just do dry rendering.
Never wet rendered for the longest time. I just was like, why? And I've become very fond of it the last maybe year or so.
Okay.
And maybe it's because I like having that giant cheesecake situation that I'm always posting in the Discord.
Look at my massive cheesecake. I cut it into portions like some diagram. Pie chart.
But I have been enjoying that. And also it's maybe because a lot of our pork that we get is, very, very rough. It's not super duper clean like you would see maybe being sold.
Yeah.
Like when Francine told me that she just used the suet, I was like, what? You just put it in the cake? Yeah. I couldn't believe it. But I was used to having to pick out, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think I've become more fond of the wet rendering in just having the rougher pieces of.
Then you don't need to worry about that at the beginning, because you can deal with it in the fact that the wet rendering is taking those bits and putting it in the layer between
or tallow, because they do it for both. It comes out so pristine. And I think people who've said they use tallow and things for face lotions, they'll wet render it multiple times to really super purify it.
To get it all out. Yeah, I
haven't done that. But
more often I wet render tallow because I do use it for hand blocks, moisturising hand blocks and things like that. So we also have another episode, number 38, which we talked more about wet rendering in. That's quite hard to say, wet rendering. Wet rendering. So if you want to know more about that, head back to episode 38. And once you have melted or rendered your lard, you will have left very much smaller pieces of fat with most of the liquid out of them. Save those. They're called cracklings, or that's what I call them. Save them. I put them in my bread or on my bread. And in the show notes, there's a recipe for an Italian bread called pane con ciccioli, which is basically bread with ciccioli, which is cracklings in Tuscany.
Such a nice name.
Ciccioli. It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
There's also a recipe for a lard crackling spread in the show notes. And also I will link Naomi, who's at Almost Bananas, who's our Ancestral cook in Slovakia, who has done two wonderful episodes with us, number 23 and number 49. She has such amazing traditional lard crackling biscuits, which I'm actually going to make next time I get lard. I've got someone coming over who is Slovakian who's never made them, and we're going to make them together, which is really exciting. So yes, use your cracklings.
You have used cracklings to flame broil pizza too, have you not?
Oh, yeah, and that was a bit of a disaster, which when Gable turned around and said, Mama, the oven's on fire. I was like, that put too many cracklings on my pizza.
Oh dear. So less cracklings.
Yeah, more dough.
It
more
is
spelt.
really good on pizza though. I did take your advice on that and it is delicious.
Oh, it's so lovely. So when you've rendered your lard, you can use it for so many things. You can spread it, like I said, Gable spreads it on bread or on toast, sprinkle some salt on the top. You can cook
Shout out
with
if
it.
Someone is dairy free.
Yeah.
It is very British. I have learned from you to spread the lard on your toast.
On your bread. Yeah, exactly.
Not
it's
butter.
A wonderful alternative.
So it's a thought. That's actually the picture. Our logo is a piece of bread with lard on it.
Indeed. You can cook with it, obviously, just like you would cook with tallow or perhaps olive oil. You can cook vegetables in it. You can cook brown meat in it. You can put it in your bread to make it softer. You can use it in pastries. I mean, traditionally it's been used in English pastries and in pastry for many, many centuries. You can fry bread in it, and that is very good. Very, very good. Just, melt your lard, slice your bread up, put it in, particularly if your bread's a bit old or it went a bit wrong. Just say, that's going to be my treat, my kind of lard bread. We grease all our bread tins with lard before we, sprinkle them with flour. I put it in cakes. There are 2 cakes in the spelt book that both have lard in them, I seem to remember off the top of my head. And you can use it in creams, like I said. If you want to wet render, you can use it in creams. We will link an article in the show notes about ways you can use lard. I think it's 10 ways to use lard, an article that I wrote. The other thing, before we finish on fat, because there's so much to say about fat, I wanted to talk about lardo, which is Italian cured pig fat. When I first moved to Italy, I saw this in, kind of the local cooperative, along with all the meats. I was like, what's this? And I learnt from the farmer, you can slice it thin, you can wrap asparagus in it, you can put it on your pizza, you can put it in your veg, you can fry with it. It's pig fat that's been cured kind of like bacon has. On the outside, it's got a crust of kind of black pepper, rosemary, all the different things. And it's absolutely delicious. My recipe for lardo is linked in the show notes. And if you want to print a copy of that out, it is also in this wonderful pork book that we're talking about.
Do this to the worst of your kind. Oh, we may have been bred to be sausage and pork, but that don't mean we should be touched and killed. Oh, 5 months of hell and you slaughter our hides. That's why I hope you burn yourself on your grill.
Well, now that our mouths are watering, let's not forget to talk about sausage. We love sausage around here, and we did not have sausage and links for a long time because it's pretty expensive to buy.
Yeah.
And because we were buying whole pigs, it was kind of hard to justify also then going and buying a bunch of cured meats, even though I would still buy them sometimes for special, Christmas casserole or something like that. But we just had chunks of meat for a long time. And then we ended up getting a meat grinder, which has been wonderful. And then this past time, we also, for the first time, tried stuffing sausages, which was also really fun. We used sheep casings, and it's the lot of lessons learned along the way.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was so much fun, and it's so satisfying and so delicious to see all those sausages piling up in the big metal mixing bowls as you're going.
Making sausages is just naturally comic, really, isn't it? I mean, it just is.
It really is. It's really soothing to sit there and twist them and like wrap them up and just watch the link getting longer and longer.
I can't do.
longer.
You can do that, can you? You can do that thing where you kind of spin them and you end up with this beautiful kind of 4 things all hanging off, and then another 4 things. Can you do that?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what kind of thing you're picturing. Mine probably didn't look very graceful. I did watch a ton of videos of people doing it, and all of them, I was like, what? How did you, what are you doing? It's like watching somebody crochet and they go really fast. And you're like, wait a minute, I missed everything you just did. But I figured something out eventually. At first, mine just kept unraveling. And then eventually I figured something out that was working. I don't know if it's exactly right, but whatever. We have a lot of fun flavoring them. I bring out tubs and tubs of all the different seasonings, and we read about different regional combinations and what people like, and we think about what we like. And you can grow herbs specifically for your sausage making. If you know that you love thyme in it, just grow a lot of thyme. Like have a row in your garden exclusive to your sausages. And the fresh herbs and dried behave slightly different in your sausages. So as you go down that rabbit trail, you'll learn more and more, as I have. But also, I can just say that a fresh pastured pork, ground and salted and cooked on the stove, will exceed every store-bought sausage you've ever had. There is nothing to hide. We're not masking any flavor here. We are only highlighting the transcendent flavor of the pork itself with the salt. And it is an experience. I mean, it is almost a spiritual experience. The first time Gary and I ground the pork, salted it, put it on the stove, and we just stood there eating the pieces of meat. We're like, this is incredible.
I've got goosebumps thinking about that.
From there, it only gets more fun, because then you're doing everything from mixing in maple sugar, if you like the maple sausages, to making chorizo type blends, of which every little tiny village in Mexico has a different theme for their chorizos. And then there's we've mixed dried blueberries in, or fresh blueberries in. You can, I mean, the sky is the limit. Pork is like a canvas palette, and you can just paint all kinds of amazing pictures on it with your spices, and just transport people somewhere. You know, you pick this like Italian blend, and everybody just immediately knows it's Italian. Yeah. Or you pick this kind of, very cumin heavy blend, and everybody knows that you're in Mexico right now. Like, it's just amazing the fun things you could do with your sausage.
Yeah,
so,
I was
you don't
a bit
have
surprised.
To stuff it.
The first time I heard you, sorry, I interrupt. The first time I heard you talking about Italian sausage, I was like, oh, I'm in Italy. What sausage are you talking about here? And then it took me a while to realise it's a blend of herbs, and that just transports you to Italy. I was thinking, not Italian
just the
sausages.
Herbs you might
Italian sausage,
like that rosemary. When you walk out down your road with that rosemary hedge that ran
Gosh, you remember
that was gorgeous. Yeah, and like I could just smell it looking at it. When you put all those rosemaries and the salt in, and maybe some whatever it was you were eating at that time, and you're there in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just wonderful. So it's tons of fun. And yeah, you don't have to stuff them. They can just be patties. We did borrow a grinder our first year that we had ground sausage, and there was no stuffing of those. And then it wasn't until we got our own grinder, and then we got like stuffer sort of attachments and casings and whatnot, that we were able to try stuffing them. But, first we had years of no pork, then we had years of just blocks of pork, then we had some ground pork, and then now we have the links again. And it's been a long journey, but it definitely feels like it's been worth the patient wait.
Maybe you could share some pictures of your sausage machine
I would love to.
on Discord when this episode comes out, because I don't remember particularly seeing it, and I would be interested to kind of see, which one you had and how it works. And also then you can show me your sausage twisting art as well at the same time.
I'll show you the pictures. That'll be very fun to put in. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Bacon. We need to talk about bacon. That should be the title.
Everybody's
of the book,
waiting for this moment.
Yes. So bacon is not daunting. It really isn't. Again, it's like another one of those things that you think, oh, it's difficult. I have made bacon in my fridge drawer. Literally, just make room in one of the drawers of your fridge and you can make bacon. You don't have to smoke it. It doesn't take ages. It's really user-friendly. It's just salt, sugar, and then whatever spices, herbs, flavourings you like. Put it all over the pork. You've got to drain the water that comes out of it every now and again. And it's got to be in the dark, ideally. But literally, you can just do it in your fridge drawer. It's not difficult.
Nope.
We have a lot of supporters who make their own bacon. The book, which I think we might have to rename the Transcendent Pork Book, Andrea. There's a recipe in there from Amelia, the one who adopted a pig who's in Wales, which explains how she makes bacon. Andrew, do you want to add anything to the bacon conversation? Because there's always more to say about bacon.
There's always more to say about bacon. After we write the memoir, Me and, what did you call it, Allison? Just Me and the Cable. Then we can write our second memoir, Make Room for Bacon.
Yeah.
Because we need to make room for bacon. I was going to say, when we cut pieces off the pig and we kind of shape them about the size and weight, so they're all about the same, so that they could be for bacon. And this doesn't just have to come from the belly, as you indicated earlier. There's back bacon, and you can kind of take any part of a pig and cure it and cut it to look like bacon. And the belly's just where you get all that streaky fat that you were referring to when you called it streaky bacon. But I was also going to add, you don't even have to cure it if you don't want to. You can just take the bacon straight, defrost it from the freezer and slice it and cook it on the stove and salt it. We do that all the time, and it is delicious, and it's really thick slabs the way I cut it usually, and the kids just love it. And you can also, like you said, you can salt it down. You can cover it in herbs and peppercorns and jalapeno slices and whatever kind of floats your boat. And you can put it in a container with a lid on it, or you could put it in a drawer, like you said. Some people do it in a paper bag, but it does get juicy, so keep that in mind. And then what you ideally would do is turn it over maybe every day, and you would leave it in there for a couple days, roughly a week or so. While it's just really absorbing all of the salt. Some people put sugar on it too. And if you're familiar with the nitrates or nitrites conversation, which you can hear us discuss back in our interview with Meredith, who is a butcher in North Carolina, then you know that the nitrates and nitrites are for long-term storage and hanging at room temperature of this lactic acid ferment meat. So you do not need nitrates or nitrites when you're curing at home in your fridge and you're going to eat it, unless you're planning to hang it on hooks in a smokehouse somewhere and it's going to stay there for a couple of months. There's really, I'm not saying that there's a need for the nitrates and nitrites anyways. It's a preservative kind of regulation in the U.S. to avoid selling any spoiled meat. And of course, when you're making, thousands and thousands of pounds from your thousands and thousands of pigs, you can't be going in and inspecting each one. And so in the mass, in the quantity, we lose some of the quality. And so the nitrates and nitrites were introduced as a regulation to ensure that you kind of forced the preservation of this meat to be safe. But when you're curing at home, there's no need whatsoever to put the nitrates and nitrites on it. That beef isn't going to be, or that pork isn't going to be hung up probably in a smokehouse for months. And if you are at the point where you're doing that, first of all, send me pictures. Secondly,
send me the bacon.
Secondly, you've done your reading and you've looked at other things and you know what you're dealing with at this point. So you're just curing it in the fridge for a couple of days. You're marinating it essentially, and then you're going to cook it. So don't feel like you need to preserve it with the pink salt, which is what is sold. And if you want to, of course, once you've done all of this marinating in the salt and the herbs, you can put it in your smoker and smoke it, and then it is cooked after that if you smoke it up to temp. But then you can still fry it on the stove, and so delicious. Wonder if I can convince Gary to smoke a slab for Christmas now that I'm talking about this.
Yum.
I'm sure it would be real hard to convince him.
It may have been bred to be bacon and ham, but that don't mean that we're not worthy of life. I will appreciate a little discernment from you as to where you stick your fork and your knife. Ooh, you calling me.
Okay, let's talk about the offal now. We often talk about offal. We love talking about offal, and pork offal is no different. The liver, let's start with that. The liver is not as strong as beef liver. I know that, a lot of people have problems with liver, and beef liver, if you are not a liver lover, can be a challenging place to start sometimes.
Just go smaller and smaller animals. If you have problems with liver, just go smaller and smaller, and you'll see. Yeah,
the pig liver is not as strong as the beef, but that doesn't mean you can't use it in any recipe where you see beef liver. So whenever, I don't really look, I don't bother about what liver is in any recipe. I just use whatever liver I have.
Yeah.
There is a recipe in the download for pig liver. So go and have a look at that. But really, you can make any liver pate recipe with it. The heart. Now, historically, apparently, that's often been stuffed. I've never stuffed a pig heart myself, but I think there is a recipe in the Piper's Farm cookbook. You were talking about Abby from Piper's Farm a moment ago. And when we used to live in Cornwall, we used to buy offal from our farmer there, and two ladies who were elderly ran the market. And when they saw me buying the heart, they was like, "Oh yeah, my mum always used to stuff these hearts. They were absolutely delicious." So probably I should try that at some point. You can also use the blood. So historically, pig blood has been used for lots and lots of puddings. Black pudding in this country. In Italy, it's called sanguinaccio, sanguine meaning blood. And I have a whole book in Italian on the different sanguinacci that all the different regions of Italy traditionally have cooked. So if you have got your own pigs and you can get the blood and stabilise it when you take the pig to be slaughtered, then you can use that blood in some really, really tasty recipes. The meat generally as well. We've talked about all the other things, and we haven't actually even talked about the meat yet. When I made some notes for this episode to share with Andrea, because I always kind of ping across to Andrea what I think I would like us to talk about, and vice versa when Andrea is in charge. I put under this section for the meat, I put roast pork, yum, belly roast pork, yummer. And that's really how I feel about roast pork. I talked about the roast pork that we had last Christmas from our farmer, and it was absolutely amazing. The recipe that I did for that belly roast pork had the most amazing crackling, and I will find the recipe and put it in the show notes if you're looking for a belly pork roast recipe. I think in the book, which you've put together, Andrea, there are 4 recipes for roast pork. One's got sauerkraut, one's got apples, and 2 of them are for belly. And then we'll put a link to my one that focuses on the crackling. I mean, roast pork, there are so many flavours, like you said, in the sausages section, Andrea. There are so many flavours that go with roast pork. So any of those flavourings that you might consider putting in sausages, you can put in your roast pork. You can cook your shoulder of pork or your leg of pork with. And I think
pork can really handle. Well, I was gonna say pork can really handle that sweetness. So, like, you can put apples, like you said, on it. Apples and onions with pork is a great pair.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely
that didn't
wonderful.
mean pair like the fruit, but I guess you could do pears too.
It's a great pair. I've never tried pork and pear together, but I think it would be very nice.
It sounds proper when you say it.
Oh, exactly. And obviously ground pork and, pork chops, all of the different cuts. They're absolutely delicious if you're buying them from a farmer who's really, bought into the whole pig thing and is looking after their pigs well. Okay, Andrea, do you want to add anything to the meat section, or really anything that we've talked about in this delicious episode?
I just want to eat some pork now.
Yeah.
I'm so hungry now that we sat here and talked about all these cracklings and herbs, and now I'm hungry.
Going shopping tomorrow, and I will see Albert the farmer to the market, so you know what I'm going to be buying. Excellent.
Like, is there anything pork related? I should add on the subject of offal, I put in the book a list of the parts I ask the butcher for when we butcher a pig.
Oh, okay.
If you aren't doing it yourself.
Yep.
So we ask for a specific list of organs. And I noted in there that a lot of times butchers are shocked that you want the organs. Sometimes they're disgusted. Yeah. They assume it's for your dog. They'll even say, oh, is this for your dog? And you're like, no, this is for me. But you also often have to remind them multiple times because I've had some bigger butchers that I've worked with, and I say, oh, I want these parts. And then I call them back and I'm like, I want this, this, and this. And you have that on the list, right? And they're like, wait, you do? What? So my favorite butcher is the one we have now. And I said, is it okay if I ask for this really long list? Because some butchers won't. They'll say, no, I'm not going to save that for you. But he said, I'm happy to give you anything you want off this. This is your pig. I'll give you anything and everything you want. I'm happy to not have to throw it away. I'm happy that you're using it. So he's very supportive of our love of organ meats, which I think is just wonderful. So I put that list in the book so that you can kind of have it in front of you if you want to be able to ask your butcher what you can
Hearing you talking about asking the farmer for everything just made me think we haven't even talked about trotters or bones, have we? Because those are both things that both of us have had from the pig, haven't we? You know, making stock with trotters and then picking the meat off them and using that. And also making pork stock. And I think, again, a pastured pig makes all the difference. You know, if you get bones from a pastured pig and you put them in the oven to roast them a little bit before you put them in the stock pot, and then you cook them up in the stock pot for, 12, 18, 24 hours, that pork stock is just really, really wonderful.
It's so good.
And can be used for many, many things.
Pork broth is so unique from all the other broths. It's so delicate. You and I have talked about this before, but I used to think I hated pork broth because the pork bones smelled so bad and the broth stank and I couldn't even make myself drink it. And again, you think, oh, do I just cover this up with flavorings? But when the first time I had a pig that was fed no soy whatsoever, and I was like, well, I don't want to waste these bones. I'm going to cook these bones. And oh my goodness, I was drooling. It smelled so good and it tasted so good. So that's where I realized in the most tangible way that what the pig was being fed and the way the pig was living and what it was walking around in was really affecting what I was getting in my final product.
Exactly. So if you're not hungry now, then I'm astounded. Go out and find yourself some really wonderful pork. And if you want to grab the download, anyone who's a supporter already has it, and you can go to our shop and have a look for it if you're not. If you'd like to be a supporter, but you're not yet, you can go to ancestralkitchenpodcast.com/join. And if it's okay with you, Andrea, I will lead us out by saying goodbye. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this episode. We appreciate all our wonderful supporters and all the wonderful people who leave reviews for us and talk to us and tell us about, how they're living and how wonderful their pork is. We appreciate you all. So thank you. I want to leave you with a full listen to my husband Rob's track, Who You Calling Pigs. If you want to hear more of his music, go to robertmichaelk.com. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Just because we're so smart, we don't have to be dull. See, it's cool, we're in the mud, so we play. We may have trotters for feet, but we dream just like you. You know, at night we even sing to our babes. Oh, we may have been bred to be bacon and ham, but that don't mean that we're not worthy of life. So we'd appreciate a little discernment from you as to where you stick your fork and your knife. Who you calling pigs? You're gonna spoil a good name. You got to be kidding me. Oh, when you say humane. Yeah. You lock us in crates to give birth to our young. We never even get to see the outside. are 200 centimeters by 12. You wouldn't do this to the rest of your kind. Oh, we may have been bred to be sausage and pork, but that don't mean we should be touched and killed. Oh, 5 months of hell and you slaughter our hides. That's why I hope you burn yourself on your grill. Who you calling pigs? You're gonna spoil our good name. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Oh, when you say humane. Yeah, 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 yeah.
If you'd like to support the podcast, you can join as a patron. Choose from various levels starting at $5. You can see what we offer at ancestralkitchenpodcast.com.
While you're there, check out our favourite books, supplements and kitchenware, or give a one-time donation.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
And if you know someone who would love our show, tell them about us.
You are helping to bring ancestral food wisdom into modern kitchens, changing the world one plate at a time.